So while my bike's in for its 8,000 mile service, my Zero DSR ZF13 2016 model, I've been lent this for to have a little test ride of. This is the 2018 Zero S, so that's more like the road bike rather than mine, which is the dual sport style. So this is more a dedicated road bike, as you can see from the tyres, standard road tyres. It's a naked bike. Like I say, ZF 14.4, so it's a 14.4 kilowatt hour battery in this. They've upped that from the model that I've got, which is a 13 kilowatt hour. So there's slightly a bit more range on that. And other than that, looks like a fairly standard bike. Got the motor down there. Looks pretty much exactly like mine in terms of general structure. Drive belt. And as with mine, it doesn't come with a screen, so if you prefer a screen, you can get optional screens for these, as I've added on mine. But the nice thing about this model is, again, as with newer ones and mine, after the 2016 model, so 2017 on, they started to put like more rigid tops on this storage compartment here, which is quite a handy little thing. There you go. Stick a few bits in that. It's actually quite deep. There's quite a bit of space in there, actually. Deceptively large. But the other option on this bike is you can have installed here the charge tank accessory. Now, on the 2018 model, for the first time, they've added a 6 kilowatt charge tank option. So that means with a battery this size, you're looking at probably about an hour and a half to charge it from flat if you were doing that. Now, the reality of riding, as those who know with electric bikes, is you're more likely to try and charge it from about 20%, between 20 and 80% is where you get the optimum charge rate. So it's probably more efficient to stop a little more frequently and stop for less time, because it takes less time to charge. Anyway, other than that, it looks exactly the same. Just turn the display on. It'll figure itself out. So the range is saying 88.5 miles at 96%. I've just ridden up the hill a bit from Streetbike, the dealership. The reality is that range is going to increase. I know it will. With a 14.4 battery on board, it's bound to. Because I know mine will do at least 100. So whoever's had this previously had a bit of fun on it, shall we say. But yeah, tidy bit of work. So without further ado, let's get on the road. Another nice hot day. For those of you who think we always have rain in England or the UK, think again. This has been a splendid summer. Really, really good. Obviously, compared to mine with your dual sport tyres on, this is a much smoother ride, just because it's got road tyres on. I kind of figured out a little route around here, and hoping it's going to be quite a nice route, taking some countryside. Now, I haven't messed about with the modes on this. It's got the same 3 modes as our standard with Zero. You've got a sports mode, a eco mode and a custom mode, and each mode allows you to set specific parameters regarding to torque and regenerative braking and braking regenerative braking. Now, the difference between braking regenerative braking and the normal regenerative braking is if you throttle off, that applies the normal regenerative braking setting. There's also an option to set a specific regenerative braking setting for when you pull back on the brake lever. So there's that little micro switch where if you pull it back, it starts to apply some regenerative braking, and you can customize the amount of of that regenerative braking that's supplied separately from the amount that's supplied when you roll off the throttle. Yeah, so I've currently got this in custom mode. I haven't bothered to Bluetooth connect and configure that to my own settings. I just I put it in custom mode to see what kind of how they had it set up, and in fairness, they've got it set up fairly sensibly in custom mode, whoever's set it. The bike is a bit lower than my bike, so it would suit somebody who's vertically challenged. I'm not especially vertically unchallenged myself, so the DSR is quite tall for me actually. This is a fair bit shorter, so it's going to be more comfortable for somebody who is a bit shorter in stature. Yeah, the range is adjusted a little bit more. It's already got up to 99 miles range, so adjusting all the time as we ride along, according to how I've ridden the last section of road. And I'm not a nutter when it comes to bikes, so I generally find that if somebody, especially a demo bike, obviously if it's a demo bike, somebody's tried to have a bit of fun on it, and that's to be expected, so they won't have been overly cautious with energy saving, let's put it that way. Handling wise, it's quite nice to flip. And the question I'm often asked is how these feel weight-wise compared to conventional motorbikes, conventional petrol engine bikes, and the answer is they feel pretty much exactly the same, because you've lost the engine weight but you've gained the battery weight, so it kind of evens out really. Yeah, that's quite a bit of poke on it. And that's the custom setting. I'm trying to flick it into sport. Just a switch here, mode switch. So I've switched into sport now. So we'll let the speed drop a bit and then. Oh yes, that actually did affect my voice then. Just slow down a bit. Give it another blast. Okay, so 10 miles an hour. Ooh. Okay. Yeah, that really picks up. The torque is there right the way through. Why aren't these people at work? Haven't they got jobs to go to? You're all going the wrong way. So, into Broome. See if we can make a clean sweep of this. I'm sorry. Yeah, so the response is certainly there on the throttle. It feels very similar to mine. The one thing is I note that the seating position is slightly forward than on mine. So mine, with the DSR, you're a bit more sat upright than with this. This one, you're a bit haunched forward slightly. So not quite racing bike, but somewhere between a normal, somewhere between a proper racing bike and a sports tourer. Probably be a fairly good description. But yeah, that torque is certainly there. And you just roll it on when you need to get that bit of extra power. It's nice, very nice. Well, you've got to be careful with bikes where you're leant forward not to put your weight on the handlebars. Because that causes all kinds of wrist strain and A lot of people complain about wrist strain. It's because they're gripping the bars too tight, or they're putting the weight on the front bars. It's important to keep your hands loose on the bars and, you know, just relaxed. But it would be easy to fall into that trap with this, more so than with the DSR. You know, you're more likely to put your weight on the front bars and get a bit fatigued in your wrists from that. Now at this point, it's just worth pointing out something about this bike which is quite intriguing. The bike is actually a learner legal bike, and that's quite strange because it's an extremely powerful bike, but there's a reason for that, and I'll just try to explain it briefly. So the licensing laws in the UK state that for an internal combustion engine, a petrol engine motorbike, the bike's not allowed to have more than 11 kilowatts of peak power, whereas with an electric motorcycle, the bike is not allowed to have more than 11 kilowatts of continuous power. But whereas the bike is rated at 11 kilowatts or 15 horsepower, it will actually manage bursts of 44 kilowatts, that's 59 horsepower. Now, if you've never ridden an electric bike, you won't quite appreciate how nice it is to just zip out when you're overtaking. And there's nothing to worry about in terms of gears, you know, you're always in the right gear because there is only one gear. And you've always got the full torque there. And on the subject of torque, this learner legal motorcycle offers 109 newton meters or 80 foot-pounds of torque. Oh, let's give the different modes a go. So, eco mode. Yeah, that's very slow on the uptake. Very slow on the uptake. So there is a place for eco because it stops. It makes the throttle a lot less responsive, which can be good because, you know, it's very easy while you're going along to just. It could be quite easy to just go along and, you know, use an unnecessary amount of power just for standard cruising when you're travelling along, you know, it's a standard flat road. I wouldn't recommend eco in built-up areas where you've got to get, you know, you've got to act quickly, you've got to move quickly out of, say, roundabouts or pulling out of junctions. Eco's not really a friend for that kind of riding, but when you're out in the open countryside, or doing long, you know, long tedious journeys, if you like, eco's quite, you know, it's got a place there for that kind of that riding. So that's when it comes into its own. Okay, let's switch mode. So press the mode switch. The throttle's got to be off first. Back into custom. Well, like I say, I don't exactly know what custom is. It feels like they've pretty much set it up, you know. If it isn't full torque, it's close. So let's switch it into sports mode. Yeah, I suspect that custom they've put 100% torque on it. The sport is not. I don't believe sport is quite 100% torque. It's not quite that much. And trust me, it's ample. Mine is normally on 70% on my DSR. And that is absolutely ample. The problem you have if you wind too much torque on, it can become overly responsive, and you know that's not necessarily going to be your friend on a wet day when you're turning into a junction, and if you accidentally happen to grab a handful of throttle, you'll find that the back wheel will spin out very easily. So there's something in just rolling off that torque a little bit. So that's different modes. My range is saying 99.8 miles now. I don't know how many miles I've done. I'm guessing I've done about 15 miles on this little trip out. And the range initially was, I think it was just about 80 miles, it said. And that's actually just gone over 100 now. So we've got 100 miles range left, according to how I've been riding. There we go. Just goes to show. As I said on my Land's End John O'Groats trip, you can't magic range out of nothing. What you can do is you can extend your range by just riding a little bit more easily and a bit more sensibly. And that's why, to date, I still haven't run out of electricity ever. I've always made it home. Or made it to destination. Okay, I think I'm going to stop in a minute and just plug my phone into charge. So we're going to try a little experiment actually. I'll pull in just round here. Now, there's one thing about this design with this solid top. It's a locked box, which is good because you can obviously leave, you know, semi-valuable things in there and feel quite safe about them. But the one thing I'd say about this, the one on my DSR is because it's a canvas type setup. There's just a zip on it, and you can have a lead or something coming out of the edge of it by not quite zipping it up fully. And what I'm going to try and do now is just run a bit of power to my phone here, and I'm not sure whether the cable's going to go under that lid okay, but it will fit in. So that's something to try. Let's give it a go. So here we go. Got this trusty Anker USB power bank thing, which has served me very, very well. I quite often use this for recording, for the video, because it will power a camera all day. So we'll pop that in there. Now let's see if we can get this rigged up so we can get the cable out okay. Do you know what? I think that's going to be fine actually. It's a little peg thing there. Oh, that's just to line up the lid, I think. Well, there you go. That answers that question. I'm sure that's a question a lot of people have actually. It's not an obvious one that you think of. But yeah, for those interested, you can get a lead in there out of the front of this just fine, and it's locked. So yeah, that works quite well. Now probably if you're riding in the rain, you'd want some kind of protection up front. I must admit, personally, I'm not a big fan of naked bikes. I know some people love them. I prefer to have a bit of protection screen-wise, and that will actually give you a bit more range on the Zero. If you have a screen put on, you will find the aerodynamic difference is enough to make a difference in range. Anyway, that's working quite well. I've mentioned it before in previous videos, but as with my DSR, this is slow riding's all in throttle and rear brake. So you tend to, because you don't have a clutch, you tend to drag the rear brake and use the throttle to keep the bike stable when you're doing slow riding manoeuvres. On my bike, the DSR's in for its 8,000 mile service, so I've done 8,000 miles in just over a year. Last June I got that particular one after the previous one, which people who've been following my videos will know I had some problems with. Well, I had a number of problems with the initial one, and we concluded that it was a lemon in the end, and you know, we managed to sort it out so that I just got a replacement bike. And to date, touch wood, touch handlebars, the DSR I have has been trouble free. Now this service, for those interested, this service is expected to cost me £75. Like I say, it's the 8,000 mile service. Well, it's not that common for people to do 8,000 miles in a year, but considering I did the Land's End John O'Groats thing last year, you know, that's 1,000 miles straight away. So I call it 7,000-ish miles. It's still a lot for a lot of bikers, but you know, I ride a lot. Even though I don't commute, I still ride a lot. I actually got a bit of a shock when I renewed my insurance, because they asked for how many miles I did in the year, and you know, I looked it up, and discovered, rather surprisingly, like I say, especially given that I don't commute, that I've done, between the two bikes, I've done 14,000 miles, which is a hell of a lot. It's a lot more than I do in the car in a year. An awful lot more than I do in the car. I think my daughter puts more miles on our Nissan Leaf than I do now. In fact, I'm sure she does. Yeah, no problem getting up to the legal limit. Tell you what, you do notice not having a screen. I know many people are used to riding it naked, but I'm not. The wind pressure against me is quite surprising when you're not used to it. It does make a big difference in terms of aerodynamics. It really does. And this is actually the first time I've ridden the dedicated S range, the Zero S range, and I've got to admit I do quite like it. I purposefully went for the DSR when I got mine because I already ride a Honda CBF 1000, so a sports tourer type petrol bike, and I kind of fancied a dual sport type of style just to try it, just to give it a go. Yeah, the reality is the S or the SR is the more likely road bike. Plus it's got road tyres on them. What I haven't got on this bike, of course, is the belt I got on my other bike. Just take it easy around there because they struggle to hear me. Especially with all that noise going on. Of course, it'll be a bit quieter when a few more of those are electric, a few more refuse lorries, and it's coming, you know. I know somebody personally who's working on it, in fact. So watch this space, folks. Electric refuse trucks coming to your neighbourhood soon. Let's have a bit of enjoyment now. Suspension feels fairly firm. Not unpleasantly so. I have recently put road tyres on my DSR after 8,000 miles. It was really due a set of new tyres, and I decided to go for road tyres rather than the dual sport style it had on there, the knobbly ones. So it's a little bit smoother to ride now on the road. It's quite pleasant. This feels even smoother, interestingly. So I think this would be a serious contender for a lot of people in the market for a new bike. But there's only one way to find out. You've got to come and ride it for yourself. So anyone not sure, take a trip down to Streetbike in Halesowen. Have a chat give them a call, or indeed wherever your local dealership is, your local Zero dealership, just give them a call and ask to take one out on a check ride, or alternatively try and get along to one of the many organised events many do, where you get to experience one, you know, on an evening meetup or something, or even a day experience.